Thank you all. And I want to thank Maddie's for doing this incredible series of seminars today, workshops, and trying to do communication and education in a totally different way. So thank you. Thank you all at Maddie's. You guys have been outstanding. So you wonder why this is here? I bet. Because I also have, besides King of Collaboration, I didn't name myself that. I think I've been dubbed the biggest troublemaker of the 9 speakers. So, oh, thanks. So just to live up to that, I need something to lean on, not to sit on, but to lean on. And I also have to tell you, I am here to talk to you today about coalition building to save lives, collaboration, and working together. And then I realized that this is probably the 14th time someone's talked about collaboration and coalition building at Expo. So you didn't have to hear it. And the very fact that everybody's in this room wanting to learn new innovative ways to save lives, new procedures and protocols, and we're all sitting together. We're not fighting with each other. This isn't dog play group time. We're getting along really well. So I don't really want to talk about why it's important to collaborate to save lives and to build coalitions. I really want to talk about why is it so hard to do it in spite of ourselves. So that's going to be for the next, I think since I'm the last one, I get to go 3.5 hours. Good? So let me confess something really first before I really start. I'm a wreck, all right? I've told everybody at Maddie's, this thing coming up to talk today has just put me like beside myself for the last 3 weeks or more, and I talk all the time. I talk to my board, I go out and do speaking engagements, I talk and coach and hopefully mentor some people. Someone somewhere got mentored by me, I'm sure. I do it all the time, and I actually was just out to see Monica out in Minnesota this week, and I talked to the board of our biggest funder, and I wasn't as nervous as I am today. And I'm nervous because, well, let me tell you, because here's my notes, and I never have notes. My staff over here knows I never use notes. So if you would like, could you just, no, don't do it, I'm kidding, but lay them all out here so that in case I need to look at them. And I was nervous about wearing the shirt. I was nervous about everything that I had to do. What was it going to look like? Maybe I'm a control freak. That's what I really figured out. So I'm wearing this jacket, one, now because it's tied into my microphone, but also because I really want to respect what Maddie's has done by giving us these shirts and promoting the whole message today. But I also have to confess that this is my thunder shirt, too, having this jacket. It really is. I need something to grab onto, and I'd like to have my notes in here. And when I flew out, I actually packed a number of shirts to wear with the suit I was going to wear, because I didn't know what we'd really be wearing. And then I realized, I'm not even wearing a suit. So why did I bring all those shirts? So this is it. I'm going to lean on this. I'm going to try to get comfortable. I know I'm the closer. We've had a ton of really good speakers today, and lots of information from adoptions to fostering to animal control, innovations, to going outside the box. And I know that I need to close it all up by bringing it together. And I think it's a good topic to talk about how we do all of that together. So, all right, that was my intro. So I told you I was terrified. I hope I have all of your sympathy now. All right, so the big thing is I want to share with you a story. And a story is, this story, I think, is why it's so hard for us to work in coalitions sometimes. Because I think we forget to really acknowledge what the reason is that coalitions are so difficult. They're made up of people. That's why. It's humans. Humans are the problem. We all know that. We love animals, but I hope we all love people too. But it's the human part. So in any coalition, we have to acknowledge that there's things that keep us apart, even though we're mission-centered on the same saving lives goal. So here's my story. It happened maybe 20 years ago. I was a new vet, maybe 30 years ago, don't count. And I went to this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous bed and breakfast up in Bar Harbor, Maine. If anybody's been there, I forgot the name of it, but probably the most stunning place on earth, one of them. And I get to the bed and breakfast, and I had a great time. It was a wonderful, beautiful day, beautiful night, beautiful grounds, Victorian building, maybe a little bit too grandmotherly, the decor, but it was really gorgeous. That first morning, I walked down those stairs, and I walked up against this wall of noise. And the noise was coming from the dining room. And the dining room was full of people that got there way before I did. It sounded like 100. It was probably 12. And what I heard was laughter and conversation and happiness. It was all fine. But I don't know about all of you, but for me, I love people. But that wall of noise, well, what did I do? I sat right down on the steps, and I couldn't go in that room because those people were already there. And in my mind, when I go in that room, I'm dealing with lots of humans that I don't know, that don't know me. And of course, when you hear a big wall of happiness, you know that as soon as you step into that, it'll all end. And that's what I was totally convinced would happen. That would be the end of the happy. They'd all stop talking, they'd all look at me, the spotlight that we all have in our minds would happen. So I sat on that bench, I didn't get breakfast. And then I realized for this talk, that's kind of what separates a lot of us from actually doing the coalition building that we want to do, because we have to get over the things that drive us apart that are actually just our normal human differences. So I want to talk about those really quick, because I think Expo alone, then CAWA meetings, everything that brings us together, we want to work together. I think it's time that we stop talking about we need to build coalitions and we need to build collaboration. Don't we all know that? We all do, and we all try to do the best job we can with it. But I think we have to acknowledge some really important differences. And so the differences went back to when we were young. High school, the most fun time of our lives. High school. We are built to be rivals. We're built to compete. We have school rivalries. We have sports rivalries. We're just built to be a part and to try to be number one all the time. In spite of the fact that we're in the same school, we're after the same mission. This is the exact same thing in animal welfare too. We are all driven to save lives. There's no compelling mission in the entire universe. And also, I would posit, there's no more complex group of people or profession than animal welfare people. Everybody in this room, I think we all think of ourselves as animal welfare professionals, but we're also humans on top of that. The complexities get in by the things that we build to really keep us kind of with a moat around what we do. The complexities really are, let's start with language, okay? How many words do we have to describe what we do? Limited admission, open admission, managed admission, municipal organization, government organization, 501c3, adoption contracts, we have it all. So rather than having them be merged into one thing, we should just embrace we have different ways and different tools to actually get the same thing done. And I think we can save lives really well by actually acknowledging that there are those differences, and we don't have to be one. We don't have to give up what we believe in and what our organizations are based on. We have to just embrace that those are all of our differences. So let me give you an example, and we'll use this very room. There's 1,000 people in this room, in my head, of course, because you're all that dining room and that bed and breakfast to me right now. So the 1,000 of you, we're all in it for the same reason. We all love animals. We all want to save lives. We would certainly not be in a Maddie session without believing that with every molecule of our souls. Yet we do it in different ways in a lot of ways. And also, we stay apart in a lot of ways when we do it. So when we built our coalition in San Diego, my shelter was the entire reason that the coalition was the entire reason that my shelter in San Diego actually ended up where it is. And the issue for us was that you cannot assume that just because you end up on the same plot of land, that's what we did. We actually were the first shelter that actually shared the same real estate with the government shelter that was serving so many animals. That alone does not bring you together. It just makes it more apparent that you're apart. So it has taken us now 13, almost 14 years to realize that there were things that we needed to do that were just not about real estate. So let me give you a couple examples, and I'll tell you but before I start that my biggest aha moment was that our own organizations don't matter at all. They really don't. If you believe in what we're all trying to do, it's about the collective good. Now, that seems like a very utopian thing to say, but we don't always act that way. So I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. I love my organization. We all love our own organizations. I gave up my whole life to actually come to the San Diego Humane Society 4 years ago. And the reason that I did was because of the potential to actually do some life-saving at a very large scale. And for all of us, we all want to do the same thing. But if we do it so focused on the fact that we have to glorify our own organizations or be just so tenaciously hanging on to what our organizations use as protocols, then it doesn't work. I'll tell you why. When we came onto the same campus in San Diego as the County Animal Services, at that time, they were dealing with about 25,000, maybe almost 30,000 animals all by themselves. Now, San Diego is one of the largest counties in the United States, 3 million people. We're bordered by a lot of areas with some serious challenges. We have LA to the north, Orange County, Riverside County. To the east, we have Imperial County. We have, thankfully, nothing to the west because we have ocean. But to the south, we have all of Mexico. And I certainly appreciate what's happening in Austin because also a border community to some extent. But there's a lot of areas of need. We have a lot of reasons that we should be working as efficiently as we possibly can. But for us, it wasn't happening on the initial cohabitation of that land. What ended up happening was that the county, the government shelter that was stressed to the max, was actually stressed even more. We weren't helping because we were there. Neither they nor we, by law, we didn't have to, neither did the county services, had to take owner relinquishments. So what happened? You all know what happens when you don't take owner relinquishments. All of a sudden, everybody's owned animals. Well, they happen to have the tag with that finder's phone number right on there, but you know, people will just say that they are actually found, rather than saying that they own those animals. So relinquishments weren't happening, and the animals that we were there to save next door with county animal services, not for county animal services, but together, those animals didn't make it to safety because we really were not looking at necessarily the partnership in the right way because we were so separate. So what did we do? We formed the San Diego Animal Welfare Coalition. That was actually 5 years later. It took 5 years to get settled in that space and to actually create what we needed to do to work together as well as we did. So we brought 10 organizations together with a total of probably 15 shelters collectively. So, of course, nothing was seamless in animal welfare, right? Nothing is very simple. We ended up having some of those organizations drop out of the coalition for whatever reason, and that's fine. They're still saving lives. Oh, you're the best person, thank you. So we actually ended up coming together, but we lost a few of the members of the coalition, and we lost them because they weren't in it for the reasons that we were necessarily, and it's not to their detriment. They had other things to do, and that's fine. I think what we want to do is make sure that that door is always open to anybody that wants to join the common cause. But I really think, going back to the aha moment number one, that we're in it for the common good, for saving lives, as many as we possibly can, and staying as humane as we possibly can. We're not in it really to make our own organizations necessarily glorified or in the public domain more strongly than they are. And I know there are other things that actually factor into this, and they're realities too. So the first aha moment is we're in it for the cause, not necessarily our own organizations. The second one is that we actually have stresses and challenges that are certainly not just a collective challenge, but they're individual. We have to fundraise. We have to get adopters. We have to get volunteers. Shoot. We have to get towels and blankets and newspaper. So all of those things mean you have to drive all of those things for your own organization as well. But if you're doing it just for your group, you're really not changing and moving that needle for animals in general. So 10 years ago, San Diego Humane got to zero euthanasia of healthy and treatable animals. But it was a small number of animals. It was maybe 4,000 animals a year. We're a pretty big organization. That was not a lot of animals when you consider there were close to 45 or 50,000 in our whole coalition. We needed to do more animals and do more sharing with our next door neighbor, the county. So 3 things happened that I think are really important to remember when you actually are coalition building. And these are the reasons that sometimes it doesn't happen. The first is acknowledge. You may have different procedures and protocols and staff and goals and pay settings, or whatever you call that, pay ranges, it's not settings, pay ranges, and you have lots of differences that are normal. Don't get rid of the differences. You can't. It shouldn't all be one organization because that takes the stress and the motivation to change away from the card table. We're in Vegas. So we have the commonality of mission. We want to save animals. The second thing is we actually have to realize that our resources are not necessarily our own. Some of us are incredibly well-resourced and lucky that that's the case. But that seriously is by the grace of God. That's because we happen to be in an organization that has had 130 years of history and has had the ability to develop resources, but that's not everyone, and it doesn't really matter if it's only you, because it's about the common community. And the third thing, of course, is that we have to embrace our differences, as I said before. We do not have our coalition working because we are trying to get everybody to be the same thing. We have our coalition working because we're sitting at a table and acknowledging that there are differences and different stresses for everybody. So that's all been very critical for us. We actually wanted to get to zero for the community because we realized it made no difference whatsoever if it was all about us getting to zero. It only mattered if it was about our community getting to zero. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that it's not even just about our communities. And I believe that every single person in this room feels the exact same way, that it's about the collective animal issue in the United States right now. Some of us even work very strongly, very closely with HSI. There's a worldview as well. But for us, we know that it's really about, it can never be about geography, whether it's even in your own community or in the US in general. Because a dog doesn't care. A dog on the New Mexico border doesn't care that he's 5 miles away from his Arizona home. A dog or a cat or a litter of puppies in Tijuana for us doesn't care that they're literally within walking distance of the border to the United States. It doesn't matter at all to them. What matters is that we get these animals saved, and we get them saved as efficiently and humanely as we possibly can. Geography doesn't matter, and for us as an issue in the United States right now, and we're just talking about the US, is the fact that we need to get animals where there are no adopters to people where there are no animals. And that solution is transport. And I got to tell you, we have to put those differences aside to say that we need our source shelters and our receiving shelters to have exactly the same protocols and principles. We just need to get those animals saved and be working together to do it. So last thing I'm going to say, because now someone's going to throw something at me. I had to work with my props. The last thing is that I always remember that, like the animals in our shelters that benefit from so much hybrid vigor, and we always talk about that, we are all better when we work together collectively for the common good than we could ever be apart. So thank you all.